Allen Cooper CPAs, located in the heart of East Nashville, offer a wide variety of tax services for individuals and businesses. Contact them at 615-257-0646 and visit their website, allcooper.com, for a full list of services.
Well, coming up next on Political Soup, we find a very inconvenient truth for the inconvenient truths. Unfortunately, last week, man, what a mess in Boston. We'll talk about that. And also, Crom Carmichael talks about his favorite Ann Curry, or at least some of the hypocrisy with Ann Curry. We'll explain all that and more coming up next on Political Soup.
Bandwidth for today's show is brought to you by SoftLayer.com. We love SoftLayer here at Talkapolis. They are the greatest hosting company ever. They make everything easy. Check out their website at SoftLayer.com. Thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome into Political Soup. I'm Joe Williams with the man, Crom Carmichael, who has all the answers, but I think I may have beat him to one this week. Crom, earlier this week, sent you some information all the way from NASA. Now, you know if it comes from NASA.
I saw that.
It's got to be true. And
No, but
well,
not necessarily, because they're changing their mind after 30 years, according to the article you sent me.
I was going to say, and the truth in this one is that the inconvenient truth is really inconvenient now because it may not have been the truth. Crom, they're telling us that global warming may not be what they thought it was, and used their own research to prove it.
Yes, and what would be the best NASA quote ever for exactly this? Houston, we have a problem.
That's right.
This is the thing. If you go back to in the 70s,
Yep.
we were going to have an ice age. It was going to be global cooling.
Mm-hmm.
Then that didn't happen, and so then they switched it to global warming. And a guy named James Hansen was the NASA scientist who was kind of the godfather of global warming. And he now is apparently just about to retire, or either just has retired. He himself has said, you know what? The data shows that global warming is not happening. And so what you have is this 35-year hype that turns out to be nothing but that. And the public policy, all of the things that we've done, all of the costs that it's burdened our society with. Now, let me be sure that we're clear about something, Joe. You and I both like clean air and
Yes.
clean water.
Yes.
That isn't what we're talking about.
Correct.
We are not talking about pollution.
Correct.
We both don't like pollution and we want to get rid of it. This is not that. This is about the air that we exhale. CO2, I think.
Yeah, carbon dioxide.
Yeah, okay. And so, and that's what they've been claiming would destroy the planet. So when you sent me that article, I just had a big hee-haw.
I bet you didn't. Basically what happened is this. The article explains that earlier this month and the month before, there was this huge explosion, if you will, of radioactive heat that came from the sun and all this conglomeration of stars, et cetera. I mean, massive amounts of heat that probably should have heated the earth and maybe burned it up. But instead, and I love this part, instead in the atmosphere, the CO2 and the NOx, or nitrous oxide, and I wish I had the quote on the article right now that says, the great coolants, the great coolants in our atmosphere dissipated all this heat, and we never knew the difference. Wait a minute. I thought it was the CO2 and the NOx that was going to burn us to the ground.
Well, here's another story that's related to it in the sense of all of the different things we've tried to do to address this so-called terrible problem that now a lot of people are acknowledging never was a problem in the first place. And this is an article entitled "The Ethanol Spring." Now, ethanol, as our listeners know and viewers know, is when you turn corn into fuel, and that fuel's called ethanol. And
well,
then,
we've called it some other things with a
Okay.
couple of extra
Okay,
steps,
all right.
but that's another story.
Okay, and then ethanol is mixed into gasoline.
Right.
Well, back in 2007, the futurists and the experts all said the amount of gasoline that we're going to burn in this country is going to increase dramatically, and it's going to reach such and such a level within a certain period of time, and that certain period of time is now, we've now reached it 5 years later, 6 years later.
Right.
It turns out that that was the peak in the amount of gasoline usage, and that the amount of gasoline that's used has not gone up, it's actually gone down. The problem with that is that the politicians then said, okay, if the usage of gasoline is going up, then we need to increase the production of ethanol, and we need to mandate that it be blended into gasoline so that we can alleviate this terrible problem that we see coming, that then didn't happen. But the problem is that now the ethanol production, which is subsidized by you and me and all the other taxpayers, okay, the ethanol production now has to be blended into the gasoline, and it's now blowing past the 10% blend rate, which is ruining engines. And so, so that increases the amount or decreases the fuel efficiency of the cars.
Vehicles, that's correct.
And it takes everything that it was intended to do, and it makes it exactly backwards, which is, once again, another example. This is why we get into knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. When politicians or anybody says, I can predict the future, and then mandates by law what has to be done to fix that problem, almost every time they were wrong about their prediction, which means that their mandate is harmful, not beneficial.
Reminds me of Heaven's Gate's group out in, they were predicting an alien ship, though. No, you're exactly right. Here's one of the things that's happened here, Crom. If you look at vehicles today, you will find many that say flex fuel. Everybody goes, oh boy, well that means it'll run on solar or power. No, all that means is the engines went through an expensive redesign. The factories went through an expensive retooling to make an engine that could accept ethanol as a fuel or a blend as a fuel.
Okay.
The other side of that was, as America's ethanol is being touted as this great answer, you had, and some of the conservationists who were so very much for it have now backed up and said, do you realize how much corn you are using to make ethanol for fuel for vehicles? Do you know how many people we could feed with that corn? Now the catch is that the corn for ethanol and human consumption corn are a little bit different. I mean, it's not, but the point is we've gone from, oh yes, let's do ethanol, oh, you're starving people.
Well, and then all the energy that's used to produce the ethanol in the first place.
So that it can sit and go nowhere.
Yeah, but here's what's interesting, and that was interesting what you said about these new engines, and that's in new cars.
Yes.
But you have tens of millions of old cars whose engines are not built.
Correct.
For a fuel mixture.
Correct.
Of greater than 10% ethanol.
Correct.
And so that's what's happening is the lower income people who have drive older cars are having their cars ruined by the very politicians who say, I care about the poor and the middle class.
But partner, let me get on my soapbox here, because that's not what's killing them. What has killed them and jobs across this country was the old cash for clunkers. You remember that? We took thousands of very good late model vehicles off the road and crushed them, destroyed them, for no other reason than, maybe they didn't get the mileage that was mandated for them. Millions of dollars involved in government subsidies, and right now, having had family in the used car business, you cannot buy used cars. You can almost buy a new one for what you can buy a used one, but more importantly, what that also did was pulled out of the economy the parts places, the aftermarket places, the replacement part and all of a sudden, the stores don't need to sell anything because the cars aren't there. Well, they don't sell anything. Guess what? You don't need anybody in a factory making, and here we go in this downward circle. No, cash for clunkers was great on the front end, but the unintended consequence, and that's one of my favorite terms, as you know, we talk about that a lot, but the unintended consequence has been absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
And kind of the same here.
Politicians, once again, messing with the market, and as you say, all kinds of things that they didn't expect. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody didn't expect them, but the politicians sure did.
Yeah.
The politicians were focused on trying to create something that was politically popular. and they didn't recognize all of the different terrible things that were going to happen as a result of the policy. So that's the cash flow clunkers, that's ethanol, and now what we know is 35 years of a hoax that we now can call global warming.
Yeah, and NASA said it themselves. The other half is on the cash for clunkers. As I recall, the government who put forth this program and mandated this program also held a pretty good stake in one of the world's largest car manufacturers.
Oh.
Not that there's a conflict of interest there of any
go.
kind. All right, I'm on a roll today. It's raining outside, and that just gets me fired up. We're going to take our first break. Crom's going to hit me in the back of the head and calm me down. Stay with us. When we come back, we are going to get a little bit serious. A couple of things that we're going to talk about, the terrible, terrible events in Boston and Benghazi. Is the truth finally coming out, and will it destroy a political career? We'll find out. Stay with us on Political Soup.